Welcome back to Just Scrap Radio on BJPenn.com. I'm your host, Cole Shelton. Episode 80, we got a good lineup for you ahead of UFC Vegas 56. First up, we're joined by one half of the main event in Jairzinho Rozenstruik to preview his fight against Alexander Volkov. Really good chat with Jairzinho about the Marcin Tybura fight not coming together and how this one came together and fighting 5 rounds again. It's something we've talked about in the past, how he likes 5 rounds a lot more, gives him more time to get going, and he kind of knows this is a crucial fight for his career. If he gets past Volkov, he's right back into the title picture at heavyweight, which is murky at the top, which he kind of discussed, but really good chat with Jairzinho as always. We're then going to be joined by Dan Ige, who's one half of the co-main event and taking on the undefeated Movsar Evloev. This should be a really fun fight, a really intriguing fight. This Dan Ige is kind of going to be that first real tough test for Evloev, who obviously beat Akeem Dawodu last time out in June. And now he's fighting Danny Ige, who's on a 2-fight losing streak, lost a main event to Korean Zombie, then lost a close decision to Josh Emmett. His only his past 3 losses are Emmett, Korean Zombie, Calvin Kattar, which are the best of the best. So it's going to be a real interesting test to see if Evloev is that guy, which Ige doesn't think he is. He thinks even though he's a big underdog, he thinks he has all the tools to get this win and start kind of riding his momentum and get right back into that top 5 mix. We're then going to be joined by Jeff Molina to preview his fight against Zalga Zumagulov. Always like talking to Jeff. He's one of the smartest guys in the sport, 2-0 in the UFC, a real nice finish in his last fight. And now he gets a name guy in Zalgas, who this is a fight that he's really looking forward to. He thinks this was a win that gets him in the rankings, but he's really not too concerned about that. He's young and he knows as long as these guys, as more time these guys give him to get into that top 10, he's going to be a harder matchup for them. We're then going to be joined by Joe Selecki to preview his fight against Alex da Silva. Joe obviously coming off his first UFC loss, where he suffered a split decision loss to Jared Gordon last October. And bit of a layoff here. He said that wasn't part of the game plan, but he did have some grappling fights in the mix, including submitting Donald Cerrone in Fury Pro Grappling on December 30th. But Joe's just looking forward to getting back into the win column and start kind of working up those lightweight ranks. He knows what he did wrong against Jared Gordon, and he believes he's fixed that heading into this one. And then we close things out talking to Ode Osbourne, another flyweight who's taking on Zaruk Adashev. Ode is a bit surprised by this matchup, but one, he thinks he could get a real nice statement finish at win in and kind of prove to everyone that he belongs in this top 15 at flyweight. But really good chat with all of them. Be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of Just Scrap Radio. All right, we're joined by UFC heavyweight Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who's headlining another card. Jairzinho, how's it going, man?
Go good though. How are you? What's up?
I'm doing well. Before you end your fight, I want to touch on with the Tybura. You weigh in, and then the day of the fight, Tybura falls ill and can't compete. Like, how disappointing was that, having to put in the entire camp, the weigh-in, and all that, and then the fight doesn't happen?
Yeah, it was one day before the fight, and it's always disappointing if you can, you do your whole camp and you can't let it out at the moment you're supposed to. But it is what it is. We take it as it is, and now we have a different fight, different opponent, bigger name, and that's what we're looking forward to. Yeah.
Did you expect the UFC to try to rebook the Tybura fight?
Um, yes and no. Especially you don't wanna get in it because it's the second time actually because the fight's supposed to be in February and then April 9, and now so I was like it's better to have a different opponent so he can recover fully, and when he comes back everything goes better and well for him. But for now I think I was better off with a different opponent.
Yeah, so how excited are you when you got the call to fight Volkov in a main event? Like, I know main events are something you always like, and then Volkov's a guy that's been around and is ranked ahead of you.
Now it's always exciting because it's a bigger name, and only thing we want to do, we want to get to work. We want to get in there. We don't got a lot of years, so we don't want to lose time what we did this year. So almost half of the year, and it's gonna be my first fight. But we take it as it is, and we go forward, being positive.
Something you touched on a bit in our last interview that I just kind of wanted to build off of is you said you like 5 rounds better than 3 rounds. Like, is that something that you just think you perform better? Like, why is that?
I perform better at 5 rounds. Yeah, I think I'm performing the best 5 rounds, and yeah, sometimes it end earlier, but I'm the guy who can just take the fight to the 4 5 rounds and still win the fight. So I feel better with that.
Is that just because like you have confidence in your cardio and you can kind of like last longer than these guys, or it just takes you a bit to get going?
Sometimes it's to get going a little bit, and then sometimes it's I have the advantage of cardio, so I don't care about anything else about that. But I think I perform better with 5 rounds. Got more time, If it goes wrong with the first or second round, you can get it. You can win the 3 last rounds or knock someone out. Yeah.
And with Volkov, like, what have you made of his past couple fights? Like, he beat Tybura, and then his last one, he got submitted against Tom Aspinall.
Yeah. Unlike me, maybe he's a grappler or better grappler, and hopefully it's gonna be a stand up fight. So, but I think he still got a tough style. Yeah.
Do you think Volkov will try to wrestle you?
Yeah. Everybody want to wrestle me, so I think he's gonna. Sorry, I think he's gonna try to wrestle me, of course, and yeah, I think he's gonna try to wrestle me, definitely.
And then how beneficial is that Tybura camp then for this? Because I imagine Tybura's whole game plan was to try to wrestle you, and then Curtis Blades' whole game plan was try to wrestle you. So you've had strung together a couple camps working on your takedown defense.
As I mentioned before in our interviews, I think my grappling game is coming along. My overall game is coming along, and it won't be easy if you try to wrestle me, especially it's not a Curtis Blades, like a better wrestler. And yeah, I don't think it has to be a problem. And if he tries, I get myself out of there and let the bombs fly.
In our last interview, I think you said your wrestling was a 4 or 5. Like, do you think it's still there, or do you think you've already improved it since last time?
I think I said if I come in as a 2 or a 3, now I'm a 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm a 6 overall game wrestling.
How do you think you match up against Volkov? Because to me, I think a lot of fans are just kind of hoping it's a kickboxing fight.
It can be a kickboxing fight with small gloves, and it can be fun. Uh, yeah, he's a big boy. He's a big tree, and yeah, we're gonna see it. I don't know. I'm focusing on everything. I'm training. I do in my camp, and I'm looking forward to this one.
Is it the usual guys at ATT you're working with for this one?
I work with all the guys. Like everybody has to fight around the same time right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we all train together and make ourselves better. So when we go into the octagon, we've been running an interview. Shoot, Mike. Baby. Sorry.
That's
Ik ben praten met iemand. Ik ben in een interview. Yeah, it's Coach Mike calling me for I don't know. Anyways. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm working with all the guys, and we everybody have to fight around the same time. So we train together, make ourselves better, and when we get to in the octagon, we can put down a good performance for ourselves and for our UFC and other fans.
Are you a bit disappointed the fight's just at the Apex? Because considering your last fight was supposed to be in front of fans in Jacksonville, and now you're just back to the Apex?
Not disappointed, and it's always more fun if it's with fans.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay in the Apex, smaller cage. We're gonna be there. And it's gonna be fun.
How do you kind of see this one playing out? Just because Volkov's a very durable guy and tough to knock out. Like Lewis knocked him out, and I think Minikov are the only two guys to knock him out.
Yeah, I don't want to make wrong predictions,
Mm-hmm.
but I always go for the finish. Soon if I find the opportunity, I think I'm gonna be the more moving guy. Gonna be moving, bam, bam, bam. Don't stand still. And any opportunity that appeals, I can put them away. Yeah, but I'm not gonna be the guy waiting for him to do something. No, I'm gonna get him to work. And yeah, I'm in shape, feel good, and can't wait.
What do you think a win, especially if you finish him? Like, where do you think that puts you in the division?
Right on top of this, where I am right now, I'm taking spot, and Especially, I'm ready right now to climb the ranking again. So let's start with Volkov, bring him down, and then yeah, 7 more to go.
And how exciting is it for you too that the top of the divisions getting booked? Like we have Aspinall versus Blades, we have Tuivasa, or yeah, Aspinall versus Blades, and then there's Tuivasa's out there, like John Jones and Stipe is kind of rumored. It's like how exciting is that the top divisions finally getting
I mean,
booked?
I'm always happy when all the heavyweights get to work. So you kind of know where you're gonna match, who you're gonna match up against after your fight. So that's always good, and I can't wait till everybody get into the octagon and exchange places.
How do you think those two fights go in Aspinall and Blades and Gone and Tuivasa?
I think I'm excited for the Espinal Blades fight because both of them like wrestler grapplers, and Espinal also can punch and kick. And for the Gain fight, I don't know, but Gain had his plan. He's playing along with touching, cat and mouse. So we're gonna see how that's gonna work. Because Tufasa always wanna come forward too. So
Do you think it's probably likely you get one of those winners as your next fight if you beat Volkov?
yeah, I think it probably be Espinal or Tufasa or something. But that's fine with me. I think those are the new guy I don't have yet. So I'm looking forward to see what's gonna happen after June 4th.
Since we last talked too, like Fury knocked out Dylan White, and then he brings in Ngannou and says he wants to box him. Like, what do you kind of make of that entire thing, especially as a guy that's getting pretty close to the title shot?
I don't know. I think it's gonna be a nice one. Uh, Boxing is a little bit different, and yeah, boxing is different. It's not that easy to you gotta do it for years or prepare for years to do a boxing match. I believe because I'm doing boxing as well in my camp. A lot of boxing with Peter Rocky, and I train with a lot of professional boxers as well, and it's a different game, but you got to control it for years so you can, you know. So I have a different kind of thinking about that matchup, but we're gonna see how it's play out. 'Cause I don't know what Ngan is doing. Maybe he's practicing back boxing for a while now, so that's why I can't put it out there, the way I think. But the way I think boxing is different.
Uh, would you rather fight Gon or Blades next, like, and get one of those fights back, or would you rather get like Aspinall or Tuivasa and have a fresh matchup?
I can do a rematch. That's fine with me. But a fresh matchup is also good. Yeah.
Just last thing, like, what is kind of the goal for you then this year?
This year I want to try to fight 2 times. Fight in June and fight December or somewhere after 3 months of June, like September or August. I don't know. But I want to fight twice this year and see what happens. If it's possible, I go 3 times still, because I'm always in shape and I can do that. So,
Well, Jairzinho, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this.
not all the time, man. Cool. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
man.
All right, we're joined by UFC featherweight Dan Ige, who's back in action. Dan, how's it going, man?
Pretty good, man. Just stoked. A couple weeks away, ready to go. I signed this fight in February, and I can't wait to go.
Yeah, kind of the first thing I want to touch on. Like, it's a lot of notice. Like, is this a lot more notice than what you wanted?
No, I mean, honestly, it kind of worked out really good in a way because after my last fight in December, I spoke to Sean Shelby and I told him I wanted to return around May, June, and I needed like a month at least to just go spend time with the family. We went back to Hawaii and like kind of mid January. I remember I got back like the very first day I got back to Vegas. I got the call from Sean and he gave me the date June 4th, and I was like, oh, that's like 17 weeks. All right, perfect. Like, let's go. Doesn't really matter who, and it was Mosar, so I thought it was a good opponent, a good test, and just to have this much time has been honestly, it's really good because I mean, no excuse. I always like you want an 8-week camp. You would prefer an 8-week camp, but even sometimes at 8 weeks, like it just gets thrown at you, even with the family, like everything changes around you and family starts stressing out and everyone starts stressing out. So having 17 weeks has been nice to like kind of organize things and plan things and like have fun with it a little bit. I got to, change up my training. I got to train a lot with the Russians in the very first part of the camp. Then I went to Colorado, trained with Justin Gagey for almost a month up there. Came back, started my camp in Vegas. At that point, I had 12 weeks till the fight, and then I took like a kind of easier taper week, but then got right back to it in Vegas because I was feeling good. Then I went out and trained with Henry Cejudo for a little bit, so it gave me the freedom to kind of bounce around and just have fun with it. Because if I would have just started grinding in Vegas from day one, you can easily burn yourself out doing that. So definitely took a smart approach, but no, I actually really enjoyed the time, but it does get old thinking about one guy for 17 weeks. And, that's something you can't really help, but I try not to think about it too much. I just go day by day. And, when we get to the fight, we'll see what happens. If it's the same opponent, great, but you never know in this game. And with that amount of time, like, people could train stupid and get hurt. So I'm just grateful that I'm healthy and I'm on track to make it to the fight.
Are you surprised that you got Evloev, or like is this kind of guy you thought you might have gotten?
Honestly, no, I'm not surprised. I did expect to fight lower in the rankings. I forget who else. Topurio is bantering with me back and forth a little bit on Twitter, and so I thought that might have been an option. Then he recently fought at 155, and yeah, the name came up, and I'm not ever really too concerned about the opponents or anyone that in the top 15. It didn't really matter. I thought maybe it could have been Bryce Mitchell or Shane Burgos. And I know Bryce had a fight at the time. He was fighting Edson, so I was like, okay, that honestly, he was kind of the only guy that wasn't matched, and it just worked out. He's definitely an really good prospect, up and comer. He's looked great in all of his fights in the UFC. So it's a good test for both of us. It's a good test for him to, try to prove that he's a contender in the division, and it's a good test for me to go and put my name against anyone, an undefeated guy in that sense. And I'm just excited to, put that 0 to the test and try to take it away from him.
What have you made of his run in the UFC? Like, he's undefeated guy and like 5-0 in the UFC, and his last win was obviously his best one over Hakeem Daoud, who was a fellow Canadian. Like, I've only heard good things about him even before he got to the UFC. Yeah,
I mean, he's fought great opponents, has great wins. There's not a lot of bad things you could say about him, to be honest. From his style, his offensive striking, his wrestling, his defensive striking, like he's pretty well versed everywhere. I mean, I would say if I could just nitpick anything, I would say he's not much of a risk taker, but he's definitely a smart fighter. He knows how to win. He doesn't lose very often. So I'm excited for the test because I've worked a lot. I've worked a lot on my mental and just being a better competitor. I've never been out fought by anyone, but I've been out competed. I've been out pointed. I've been out techniqued, and it's those little fine tweaks that I've made to my game, and from the technicalities, the tactics, when to do certain things. I've just been working on growing as a fighter because I'm fighting the best guys in the world, and I'm falling just short. And it's like, what is it that's going to get me to that next level? And I think I figured it out, but I'm still in this. I'm still growing. I'm still getting better, and only time will tell.
How big of a help was it working with like Gaethje and Cejudo for this camp? Because I imagine Evloev's gonna want to wrestle you pretty early in this one.
It was really good, man. And like, talk about taking risks. Like, going up and training with Justin Gagey, like every day is a risk taking day. We get after it. We go every single day, and the way he fights is the way he trains, and it was really fun going up there, and then training with Henry was just a completely different speed change, and we focus more on like the philosophy and the tactics and the probability of winning, and that's huge because that's not something I really go into fights thinking about is my probability of winning. I'm usually thinking that I can knock you out if I can land a clean punch. So to break things down into different contexts and be able to view the sport that way, I think has helped my game a lot, especially like I said, mentally and tactically. You can expect to see growth and improvement there, but I'm excited, man. At the end of the day, a fight is a fight, and you can never believe the odds because anything can happen.
You kind of brought up the odds right there. Like, have you saw them obviously then?
Yeah, I got tweeted or mentioned in a tweet. I think I was plus 170, and that's fine with me. I lost my last 2 fights. He's won 14 in a row or 15 in a row. So it just I like it because I like being in that position at times. I like being because I always have an underdog mentality. Even when I'm a favorite, I tell myself I'm the underdog or convince myself that I am. So yeah, that it'll be fun to see on fight night.
It's only gone up too. You're like plus 250 now, but that's like anytime one of those Russians fights, like something I've noticed, even just talking to my friends, they all just always bet them because they're like, oh, they're Russian, they're gonna win. So but like with Evlev, like how do you think you match up against him? Because I think pretty common the way to break it down is if it's on the feet, you're probably winning. If it's on the ground, you'd probably think that he's winning just because that's kind of his style is getting it down to the ground.
Yeah, I mean, if he's on top controlling me and I'm not doing nothing, he can win. But I've I have a lot of training experience with the Russians. I've trained with Khabib. I've trained with Islam Makhachev. I've trained with some of the best Russians in the world that the people are talking about. No one's talking about most are these. I'm training with the best guys, or I have trained, and I can compete with them. It's not like I just lay there and get beat up. Like I enjoy the training. I go back every single day because anytime they're here, I want to grow with them and pick their brains, and because they are really good. And I'm just excited because I'm not saying every Russian has the same style, but they're very similar in their tactics, their anticipating skills, and they have great top control, great top pressure. They'll never play guard. They don't like to play guard. If we start grappling, like usually I'm the one starting bottom because they don't want to accept it, and that you have to work your way up and work sweeps and work back takes. But it's fun, man. This is sambo, jiu-jitsu, whatever you want to call it. I can't wait. It's MMA. So, yeah.
How much pressure, if any, is on you then? Just because you're on a 2-fight losing streak, like you never know with the UFC if you lose 3 in a row. Like, is there any pressure on you?
I could put pressure on myself, but to be honest, I'm like, I've put pressure on myself for every fight, and the ones that put the most pressure on myself, it's like I don't do that well. Like I don't know. It was a weird zombie fight. I put a lot of pressure on myself, especially from like a financial standpoint. Like, oh, I have a family I have to take care of now. And like, that was weird. I put this like crazy pressure on myself that I had to go out there and fight and provide and make a big splash in the division and knock out zombie and like make all this noise to get more money essentially for my family. Like that was kind of the mind frame I got in. And, take away all that, it's like I've gotten back to my roots. Like, why did I get into the sport in the first place? Like, it was because I enjoy competing and I want to be the best in the world. But there's things that come along the path, such as money and fame and rankings and fans, and they can get in the way of the vision. So that's something I've kind of tried to focus back, especially after my last 2 fights. Like, what really matters? Like, why am I putting this pressure on myself? I just have to go out there and have fun and compete. And that's typically when I do my best. And I listen to a lot of the greats in all sports and basketball and football and from wrestlers and fighters. And something common that they always say is they're having fun. I'm just going out there. I'm having fun. I'm competing. I just rewatched The Last Dance, and I try to watch it every now and then, but it's like, hey man, we're just out here having fun, like trying to win championships. So that's kind of what I'm getting back to as far as my mindset. So no, I'm not putting pressure on myself because I'm coming off 2 losses. In my opinion, I humbly believe I won. So in a way, I have momentum. I don't have industry momentum. I don't have media momentum or matchmaker momentum or odd maker momentum, but I have personal momentum. So I still see myself as growing and coming up, and and all that matters is one night.
How do you kind of see this one playing out? Just because we've obviously seen your power, like you can knock anyone out, but like I kind of expect this one to be a real grinding fight that probably goes the distance.
I do too, and I always expect that, and also because we both have the same amount of time to prepare for this. If he's not in shape, like something's wrong with him, but I guarantee he's in shape, and he's been training just as hard as I've been training. So we're both going to be durable, and we're both going to have gas tanks like a Ferrari, and we're going to beat each other up for 3 rounds. So I do expect it going into deep waters, but hey man, no one's broken this guy, but he's a human, and I know I have the ability to break guys. So I'll be trying to break him any moment I can. And when I find his breaking point, I do plan to finish him, but it's finding the breaking point and the ability to recognize when they're breaking. Everyone has their breaking point, and GSP said that too. He says it's the ability to recognize when your opponent breaks and taking that away from them. So there's moments it happens in every fight, and if you give a fighter just that little bit of second to recover and get their wits back together, like, you lost your opportunity. So I will be looking for that opportunity, and I'm gonna look him in the eyes for 15 minutes, and I'll find that breaking point.
Where do you think a win, especially if you like finish him, hand him his first loss, like what do you think that does for you and like puts you in the division?
I don't really care. It puts me back in the win column. I don't care if it moves me up or moves me down or keeps me in the same spot. It gives me a win, and that's what I'm focused on. I need to get these wins back, because if I want to be a champion, I can't be a champion on a 2-fight win streak, a 1-fight win streak. I need to rack them up, and that's my goal. It hasn't changed from falling short. It could be easy to say, well, I lost to the Korean Zombie and Zombie got killed by Volk. I have no chance. It's easy to say that and just give up and walk away, but I'm not accepting that. And even Volkanovski said it, all you featherweights, get your shit together. Like, I took that personal, and I got my shit together, and I'm working on my shit. So I'm trying to prove a point. I have to get back to it and get back to the winning, and wherever it puts me, it puts me. But I'm not too worried about that.
A bit disappointed just at the apex, like you go from all the crowd in your last one back to the apex.
I was just saying that to someone today. I was like, man, I did 2 fights in a row at the Apex. Then I got a T-Mobile main card. It was sweet. And then back to the Apex. Damn, man. It doesn't matter, dude. Send me to the moon. I don't care.
Just last thing then, like what is kind of the goal for you this year then?
Oh, I'm getting a kind of a late start, June.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think you could expect me to fight 2 times this year at least. You never know, though. Certain opportunity knocks. I plan to be ready. I plan to, be training all year long. I always do. But it's been a long camp, so I do want to take a little time to just, like, for my family, for myself after this fight. Um, it'll be nice just to give them that, like, peace of mind to go to Hawaii maybe for a couple weeks and then come back and get back to it. So I don't really know, but at least 2 times, maybe June and October, but we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out.
Well, Dan, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing
For
this.
sure. Right on.
All right, we're joined by UFC Flyweight Jeff Molina, who's back in action here pretty soon. Jeff, how's it going, man?
Doing well, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing well. A bit later than I think a lot of people expected. I know when we talked after your fight, you had a bit of an injury. Is this later than what you expected to come back from then?
A little bit, yeah. I wanted to make sure I was fully healed up. It's been a while since I've been healthy. I don't think I've been healthy yet for my contender series or both my freshman and sophomore outings in the UFC. So feels good to be healthy, and I'm really excited for this one.
And then when you got offered Zalga Zumagulov, like how familiar are you with him?
Pretty familiar. I keep my eyes out on everybody in this weight class, outside and inside the UFC. So I knew who he was, and I was game.
What have you made of his UFC run? Because like he dropped his first two by decision. I think both fights people thought he should have won, and then he submits Jerome Romero, and then his last one he obviously runs into Manel Kopp, who looks like a future contender.
Yeah, Manel Kopp's a monster. Man, I feel like his UFC track record doesn't speak to the quality of fighter he is. Man, he has some big wins on his resume. He has a win over Tyson Nam, Bagatinov, Ulanbekov. He's good, man. He's really good. I don't think he's had the best performances, and some of those are razor thin, man. I thought he won the pie of a fight, so he's really good. I think he's the next level competition, and I'm kind of ready to show where I'm at.
Is this someone you thought might have been next, or did you think you might have been able to get a ranked guy?
I don't really care about the rankings, man. I could give two shits whether they have a number next to their name or not, but I think he called me out after his last fight. I think after I had my debut, he called me out, and there's some back and forth on social media. So I definitely looked into it, and I figured it's a matchup that might happen in the future.
How do you think you match up against him? Because he's a guy that's kind of fought a lot of these Russians, like good takedown defense, but he's not much of a finisher. Like all of his wins are by decisions. Like how do you kind of think you match up against him?
Man, I think he's it's not a thing like I've never seen before. He throws big hooks, big overhands. They're educated, he knows what he's doing. He's a brawler on the feet. He has good get ups when he gets taken down, and he's a decent wrestler. I just think it's something I've seen before. I feel like the guy I fought in Contender Series was similar. I do think Zalgas is a better version of that. And then I've seen this before. I train with I'm bringing him out for this fight, but one of my main training partners, Alan Olivas, is a really, really good look for me, and I do really well against his style. So I'm excited to kind of prove to everybody what level I'm on.
Do you expect him to kind of try to wrestle you after being on the feet for a bit, or do you think it's mostly going to be a striking fight?
I do think he's going to try to wrestle with me. He hasn't really wrestled in any of his UFC fights, like none. Like the only time he wrestled, I think, was his fight against Amir Albazi. He shot for a takedown at the end of the first, which might have won him the round. But he hasn't really wrestled inside the UFC. Outside the UFC, for sure, he wrestled a ton. But I think he's going to try to wrestle me. If he's smart, he's going to try to wrestle me.
And you mentioned it a bit there ago, like finally healthy. So like, does that kind of change your whole like fighting style or get not your style, but like just like your level of confidence going into the fight where you're not bagged up or dealing with these like kind of nagging injuries?
100%, man. I'm really excited for this. I can't stop saying that because I really am. Like I have yet to be healthy since the regional scene, and I feel like I haven't been able to give my best performances. Probably partly because I've been going into these fights injured, so I'm really looking forward to going out there and kind of showing like what I'm capable of.
And your last fight, like I think you showed off your striking a lot, like you've shown off your chin. So do you think that kind of next test for you is someone just kind of shoot for takedowns over and over again to kind of prove your takedown defense is there, or even just your grappling? Because that's kind of what happens when people have these good striking performances. They go, oh, they're only a striker. Just wait till they fight a grappler and all that happens.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. I feel like I got to show some of my grappling more defensively in the last outing, just defending submissions for the first couple minutes. But I think this was going to display that I'm a mixed martial artist, and I didn't start in a certain discipline in the sport. I started in MMA, so I think it'll be a good coming out party to kind of show what I'm capable of.
Do you think that's a big difference between you and like kind of not even like that generation before, but it's fighters that are only like 7 to 10 years older than you, where they started as like just karate or just wrestling, where now the sport's getting so popular, like you start in MMA and like there's just MMA gyms. It's not like, oh, I'm just in a jiu-jitsu gym. Like, do you think that's kind of a big difference? It's kind of just starting to realize that in the UFC now.
For sure. Like, I think the sport's constantly evolving. It's not that old, man. Like, the sport's only been around like 28 years. So the evolution of the sport is rapid. It changes every fucking weekend. And I do think we're not going to see more of the specialty fighters. Like, we're going to see more of the mixed martial artists that are good everywhere, like across the board. They're A's, you know, they're not A pluses in anywhere, but they're A's across the board. And specialties are still going to be around. You're still going to get those heavy wrestlers that transition well to MMA. But I started in MMA. I only wrestled in high school because my MMA coach was like, "Hey, man, next year you're wrestling." So it's I feel like people do have that stigma about me that I'm just a striker. I'm just a striker. So if Zalgas decides to try to wrestle with me, we'll see what happens.
Who are kind of the main guys you're working with? Like, I imagine Tim and kind of the usual cast of crew there.
Yeah. Tim Elliott, man, one of the best grapplers at 125. Brandon Morano's doing his camp with us. So that's an amazing look, you know, to get a former world champ and someone who I think could be the world champ. As one of your main training partners is awesome. I got people like Alan Olivas, which is who I mentioned, that's coming out with me to Vegas. He's a great look. We've got a bunch of 25ers, man. Micah White, some people you haven't heard about, but will be in the UFC in the next couple of years. So we have a really good group of small guys for being a small gym in Missouri.
Oh, what's that like seeing Brandon Morano get out there? Because I've been talking to guys for your gym and James for like a couple of years now, and the always thing is like everyone always says, "Oh, James doesn't get that respect he deserves." It kind of feels like this past year and like through COVID is when people started to realize how good of a coach James was, and now you're kind of seeing it with guys like Moreno and like James Gallagher, like people from across the world and different countries moving to small town Missouri to go to the gym.
Yeah. It just speaks to the kind of environment James has built in the gym. You know, like it's nothing pretty out here. You know, there's not rainbows and sunshine every day. Sometimes the weather sucks. There's no beach to go to after practice. Like it kind of speaks a lot to the sacrifices you have to make to come out here and get the training. And I do feel like James is getting more recognition that he deserves. You know, for a time we had like 18 UFC fighters in a small gym in Missouri, which is pretty fucking cool, man. And I think Kai Car France and Brandon Moreno are going at it July 30th. So I think bringing a world title back to Glory MMA would be huge for the gym, would be huge for James, and be huge for everybody.
With Zalgas, like we saw a cop able to connect on a few shots. Like, how do you kind of see this one playing out? Because when you connect, like you saw in the last one, like you'd hurt guys pretty badly.
Yeah, I do think I'm gonna be able to snipe him, man. I think the first round, like he's a 1 round fighter. He does have a tank on him, but when I say 1 round fighter, I mean like he gets after you in that first round, and he tries to brawl with you, man. So I just think not engaging in those brawls, just sniping at him, I'll be able to pick him apart and eventually find him.
Where do you think a win puts you? Like, I know you mentioned earlier you don't really care about the rankings, but I feel like this is the win that has to get you that rank guy or number beside your name.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't, like I said it before, like I don't really care about the rankings. If I'm ranked, sweet, that's cool to have a number next to my name. If not, I'll keep fighting and I'll keep winning. My goal is to hold the world title for at least one night. And if I have to fight 15 through number 1 to get there, then so be it. You know, I'm in no rush to get there. I'm 24 years old, get better every day. And I'm just going to keep getting better after these fights and training in camp, outside of camp. And one day I'll hold that world title.
Do you really plan to call anyone out, or is it just whoever the UFC gets you? And then once you start kind of getting into that top 10, you can start calling your shots.
Yeah, I might have some call outs in mind for after this, but you know, we'll just play it by ear.
Is that something you and James kind of go over, is like potential calls, or is that something you just kind of think on yourself and you kind of look like, yeah, that one kind of makes sense?
Yeah, mix of both. You know, I talk to James quite frequently about matchups that I like and that he agrees with. So, yeah, it's about a mix of both.
Hoping another bonus. Like, I don't get, you should be 2 for 2 on the bonuses.
Man,
like, I
dude.
don't understand it. We're maybe go 2 for 3, 75% isn't bad. Or
Man,
not even 66% or whatever it is.
I do really think I should have got a bonus in that second fight, man. I felt like the first round was very high pace with the submission attempts and the ground and pound, and then me putting him out in the second, dropping him pretty bad, and then I think there was like 50 plus unanswered shots. Yeah, I really think I'm not gonna cry over spilled milk, but I really feel like I should have got a bonus that fight. I know why I didn't. They decided to give Vittori a performance of the night versus the fight of the night because Costa missed weight and they didn't want to. This was before they were giving like 100K to the person that didn't miss weight. So they don't want to award Costa, which kind of sucks. So Costa owes me 50K, but it is what it is, man. I feel like my style is very bonus friendly, and I was hoping UFC would kind of play into that and be like, hey, man, this kid's exciting. He always goes out there and he's aggressive. He gets up in your face. And I was hoping they'd try to like pin me as like the bonus friendly guy. So maybe this one will be that second bonus I need.
A bit disappointed you're just at the Apex, like they're doing fight nights everywhere, and you just get put on one of the Apex cards.
Yeah, that sucks, man. This is my third fight at the Apex. Not a fan. I like it for what it was, but I experienced it. I want to experience fighting in front of a crowd again, man. That was sick. I had my debut in front of a crowd. I think it was like 15,000 people in Jacksonville. First fight in front of fans. I want to experience something like that again. But beggars can't be choosers, man. I got a fight lined up. I don't really care where it's at. Preferably, I would like not in the Apex, but it is what it is.
Especially because you went from your debut in front of the fans, so you got like the experience. It'd be different if like you've only done the Apex, you don't even kind of know what it's like. I feel like it's worse when you experience the fans and you got to go back to the Apex.
Yeah. Especially since the last one was the Apex, right? So I'm
Yeah.
okay with like let's go 1-1, 1-1. Like let's do fans, Apex, fans, Apex. I'm okay with that. But man, this will be my third fight at the Apex, and preferably I'd like to fight in front of fans.
You get your hand raised here, like after being kind of taking a couple months off, like you hoping a quick turnaround, or do you kind of like what is kind of the goal for you this year then?
Yeah, maybe September. Yeah, so somewhat quick turnaround.
Mhm.
September, October sounds good to me after this go around.
Just the last thing I want to touch on with you is the flyweight division. Like obviously Morano's fighting Cara France. I got announced. Like, what do you kind of make of the top? Like the division has a lot of good fighters, but just so murky with like Figueiredo, Moreno. Maybe they do a fourth one after this. Then there's Kai. Then there's like it's so like cloudy at the top that you don't really know who's even going to be next after Moreno and Kai.
Yeah. The title picture is kind of in a weird state right now, but I think the division's booming, man.
Mhm.
Like they're putting on bangers of the fight. This past weekend we had Clayton Rodriguez and CJ Vergara put on a great fight, and I feel like flyweights are finally getting some love. And not finally, I guess it's been like that for the last year or so, but it's really cool to see this like division emerging again, and people are paying attention to it. So I do think having that cloudy title picture does make things weird, but at the same time, it makes things exciting. Like we got an interim belt and Kai Car France coming off a big win, and Moreno is coming off a close title fight. So I think it does put things into a different perspective, but it's not bad. It's really not. And I really don't think there's any clear contenders besides Pantoja outside of that. And he's just not the most fan friendly fighter. So I get it.
Were you a fan of like maybe doing Moreno Figueiredo 4? Because I've talked to some flyweights, they thought it had to be done. I've talked to others where they were like, at that point after 3, I think you just have to go a different way. And maybe if they both, when you do a fourth fight, like now that it kind of isn't, but it still might be 4-0 Figueiredo. Like, what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Man, Moreno's my teammate now, so
Yeah.
I like it. I'm a huge fan of it. I don't mind it, to be honest. Like even if he wasn't my teammate, why not? These guys are at the top of the division. Some of those fights have been really close, and it's not like there's a ton of people barking up that tree that people want to see fight. Like I mentioned, Pantoja isn't the most exciting fighter. He's not the most well known guy. And behind him, I don't know who's there besides Kai Car France, and he's exciting, so that's why he's getting a title shot.
Actually, just one other thing. I know you've been doing the commentary. Like, how are you kind of liking that then?
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I love commentating. I'm a huge fight fan. I'm a fight nerd. I watch fights all the time. I'm big into gambling now on the
Yeah, I've
MMA
seen that.
side.
You've
So,
been making some good money.
man, it's been really good to me. So, I legit treat it like a job. I watch tons of tape, man. Like I spend hours watching tape. Like every Tuesday, I spend hours watching tape, breaking down fight cards. So if there's Bellator on, Invicta's on tomorrow, I'll break that down. I always make some good money there. UFC on Saturday. Last week was super busy. We had PFL, Bellator,
Mhm.
UFC. So I watched a ton of tape, man, and I feel like it makes me better, like a better fighter. I can learn from other people's successes, and I can learn from their mistakes without taking brain damage, which is always nice. So I forgot what your question was, but yeah, I'm watching a ton of
The
film.
commentary.
Commentary, yes. Yeah, dude, I love doing it. I can break down. I can talk fights all day. You know, I do it with my buddies when they come over and we're watching fights. We talk fights all day, and I feel like it's something I could see myself doing in the future, both in English and Spanish. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of it.
Is that where you and James kind of get along too with the gambling? Because I know he's right into that now.
Dude, James Krause has single-handedly paid all my bills for the last 8 months with his fight picks. So he has a Discord. I'd go check it out. I think we're up like 50 units in the last like month and a half or something crazy. We've been killing it. Haven't had a loss in the last since he started the group chat. So before he had the Discord, we had like our own WhatsApp group chat that some of the OGs were in. It was about a group of 15 people, and this has been my passive income for the last since August. I quit my job after my debut. I think it is like I fought in at the end of April and I quit my job in August. So this has been the only income I've had. Obviously, I don't get paid on until I fight or unless I fight. So this is how I paid all my bills, and I treat it like a job.
Well, Jeff, man, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, bro.
All right, we're joined by UFC Lightweight Joe Select, who's back in action. Joe, how's it going, man?
It's going good, man. Just finished up some training up here at GMO and just hanging out between sessions.
Returning in June, like 8 months after your last one. Like, is this a lot later than what you wanted?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm glad it's happening now. You know, and in hindsight, you know, kind of every fight since my first fight in the UFC. The first time was because of COVID. The second time, I think it was because they had so many guys after signing short notice fighters for COVID, and then I was convinced this time it was for having 2 boring fights in a row as a punishment. But it really had just come down to, I think, there's just so many guys to get matched up. So I wanted to fight a lot sooner, but it gave me a lot of time to work on a lot of stuff coming off my first loss in the UFC. So probably a blessing in disguise, but I am like chomping at the bit. And maybe that's one of the biggest blessings coming out of it is like where in the past I fought so many times back to back to back before I was in the UFC. Now, like this layoff, I mean, I wish it was this weekend where sometimes maybe going to fights, you're nervous or you're going, oh, it's coming up fast, or like I genuinely wish I could fight on Saturday. So that's the good thing of it. But yeah, I wanted to fight a lot sooner.
What do you take away from your last fight? Like really close fight against Jared Gordon, split decision loss. Like what did you kind of learn from that one and take away from it?
Yeah, I learned a ton. We were talking about this earlier. It's like with a split decision, it does suck because one person's opinion dictates, like you're getting only your show money and not your win. It stinks. But when I watch it back, I'm very critical myself. So like I take it as a loss. I see it as a loss. I didn't do anything enough to go, I deserve that win and I should sit here and complain about it. I don't think he did enough or I did enough if I would have gotten the decision to go, that was a heck of a win. It was a grind of a fight, and some things I could have done more. He did more, but kind of, just coming off his performance last weekend where like I was watching and rooting for him and he looked awesome. But I think maybe some of the mistakes that he made in our fight that I was able to capitalize on because he was coming off a split decision win, maybe he didn't make those adjustments. I don't know, just seeing in the fight. I'm not like, please don't make it a headline. Like he's picking apart. But whereas, for me, it's a split decision loss. It's a really close fight and maybe I could have won, but I took it as like, I got to look at everything that I'm doing and revamp everything. So, while it does suck, practically, long-term, I think that might've been a great thing for me too. So, just taking the good out of it and really revamp a lot of the things that I'm doing, without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but just really improving and making sure that we're doing everything on track and, in the most professional manner there is. So, it's some key takeaways we're really, really, taking away from it.
Before we get into your fight, I just want to touch on the 2 grappling matches you had. You obviously had the draw against Gregory Rodriguez, who's a lot bigger in weight than you are. And then you submitted Cowboy. Like, how kind of cool was that to grapple and then obviously submit Cowboy?
Yeah, it was awesome, and the team thing was really cool. The Fight Pass Invitational, just a fun concept. And it was before the holidays. It was a fun way to get out there and compete. And it's kind of like a dual match. So it was kind of cool because I never really got to do any of that. I didn't wrestle or anything coming up. So getting that like team experience was fun. Yeah, Rodriguez was a monster. He was huge. We had a fun little match, but that's a big boy. And then this running thing kind of came up out of nowhere. I saw that they still had a couple openings. I messaged Rob at TFFC and Fury Grappling. Was like, hey, do you still have anything? He's like, yeah, let me see. And he came back with a couple names and they got matched up with other guys or couldn't do it. And then he's like, about Cowboy? I was like, dude, I am in. Yeah. And that was a blast, and I think that was something else that was really good in this layoff was, so I did 2 grappling super fights like that. I did the Abu Dhabi trials in November. And then just down here in the South, in South Carolina, we just did like a little quintet or like a team duels thing as well for like a little cash prize. And I think that was the biggest thing too, was like, I've been in the UFC now for going on 3 years almost. It'll be 3 years in July. And spent so much time where like, this is my career, and there's a lot of implications on everything that I'm doing where these fights mean a lot, and getting back to where I did a couple things where it's just remembering how much I love to compete, and it really got me back to like, oh yeah, like I could be doing anything in the world. I choose to do this because I love this, and the Abu Dhabi trials have no cash prize or anything like that, or maybe there's like $500 or something if you win the whole thing. But it was like, man, I just want to get out here and compete. I'm after that loss to Gordon, it was like I'm jonesing to compete and just get out there. That's why every chance, pretty much anything anybody came up with for me to do, I said yes to. I didn't really care about the pay or anything else like that. So yeah, it was awesome. It's been a great little stretch getting to compete and have some fun with it.
And your opponent, Alex de Silva, like how familiar are you with him? Only has 3 UFC fights, like hasn't fought since that Adesanya Costa card against Brad Riddell, and what was a really fun fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wasn't terribly familiar with him, not because he's not a great fighter. I just there's so many guys now,
Mm-hmm.
So if it happens to be a card that I miss, where I watch a lot of them, but sometimes you miss one, So yeah, well, I got real familiar with him real quick, and super tough fighter, very well rounded, very dangerous, especially early, dangerous the whole time, but very explosive, comes out of the gate hot. But the good thing is that leaves openings too, and the best thing about it is I have coaches that are working really, really hard on focusing on me. I think one thing that we did do the last fight, a little bit in the Miller fight, which kind of showed in my how I wasn't as aggressive as I normally am in those last 2 fights, was we were, for the first time ever, kind of talking more about the other guy, talking about what he's going to do, and we're going to look for this, and we're going to capitalize here. And in the fight, it really ended up being the things that we didn't really worry about. That, with Miller, I was so worried about his guillotine and his back taking, and I stayed on a bad shot for a second. He never got my neck. He never, so this time they're watching him. They're looking for places I can capitalize without really telling. I mean, I watched him too, and I'm going to watch him a little more, probably a month out this week. But they're focusing on me and where I can beat him, being me, not where I can beat him, but where not where he can be beat, but where like me, the Joe Selecki, the fighter, can beat him, which is really how we got here in the first place. So it's been really, really fun to focus on me, 95% of the camp, and then I've watched him and I know who's in front of me and how tough and dangerous he is. But yeah, it's been really fun to get the focus back to just getting better, and competing like we talked about.
Is it hard to prepare for him just because he hasn't fought in like nearly 2 years by the time you guys fight? Like, is that kind of hard to know what he's been working on or like what kind of fighter he's going to be?
I mean, I don't know, because it's so tough. Guys make such big improvements. I've had, by the time we get in the cage, it'll be I think we said 8 months or something like that. So it's a long time too. I like to think I'm going to come out there and be totally different, especially if we watch the last fight. That's the most different I've ever looked, not in the best way. That was probably, my worst performance to date. So you can hopefully throw that fight out if he watches that. So guys are changing so much. I know he's a young fighter. I think he's 26 or 27. And, I'm 28, about to be 29. I'm just coming in maybe at the beginning of my prime. So at this stage in the game, I think we change so quickly that, if you're relying on what happened in the past, you're going to be, catching up in the fight. So I'm really not focused on it. I see his natural attributes and what he's inclined to do. But, and the biggest thing is, and I always say this, and I try not in an arrogant way because I don't mean it like that, but he's never fought me. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to make him look bad or anything. It just means, sometimes you plan a guy's going to come out hot and then he knows you're a grappler. And he's like, well, actually, I'm going to counter strike or whatever it is. So he's never fought somebody with my specific skill set or my build or whatever it might be. So really trying to go out in there. And this is a big thing I've been working on with one of my coaches, just being mindful, not worrying about, the last exchange, the next exchange, is right what's in front of me. So I'm going to go out there and be me.
How do you kind of see it playing out then?
I think, I always give the same answer for these fights because I have to be prepared to grind for 15 minutes. But the big thing in this is going to be, I think it's going to be my pace, is wrestling through these positions where he is very good, especially in that first effort. Like he's very explosive on the shot, defending the shot, has really good hips, good 3-2, good 2-3. So it's going to be, the head movement, the footwork, the pressure. And I think, after that first half of the fight, we get into that halfway through round 2, start going into round 3, is I can keep a steady pressure. And the whole goal is to kind of drown him in that pressure, So if that happens, I think I see openings to go for a finish. But, my plan is always to get it raised over 15 minutes. But along the way, I am, especially the way we've been training this camp with the, controlled aggression is something's there. I'm definitely prepared to hop on it.
Do you put any pressure on yourself, like to not only just maybe not get the finish, or either get the finish or put on like a one-sided clear win after your last one?
Yeah, I mean every fight, last fight included. But yeah, that's just how I am. The last fight for me, it's so funny. People say they see it this way, they see it that way, but in my mind, I might as well have been, absolutely ragdolled for 15 minutes because I don't think it should have been that close. Not because he's not a great fighter, just hold myself to that standard, So like every single day I've had to wake up and question that performance and where I went wrong and work on it. And, it creates that. And this has happened every time I've lost in my career. There's been, 2 other times in my pro career, I've had to pick myself up off the floor with a canvas. And it really, it makes for not a fun couple months because you're just harping on it and chipping away at it. But it really creates the best product. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is I don't feel the pressure from, fans or commentators. I think that might have been the biggest thing going into the last fight was, listening too much to that nonsense. I have no business checking out a podcast where, the Anakin Florian show where they're saying after the Miller fight, because it was boring, like, oh, his ceiling might not be as high as we thought. Like, I respect those guys. I like their show, but why is that affecting me? How do I think? And, that's been the biggest thing is just actually not worrying about any of that and worrying about the bottom line, which I'm going to go out there and, use what God's given me to glorify him, and to provide for my family and to, put on a good performance my team can be proud of as well. And those are my 3 main concerns going into this. And the rest is just noise. And I think the big thing of the last 8 months is realizing that I can't control the noise, but I can definitely try to tune it out.
Who are kind of the main guys you're working with? Same guys like John Salter and all them?
Yep. So John Salter always taught the dog jiu-jitsu. He's been a really big help running me through my camp when I'm home in Wilmington. Jeff Jimmo and all the guys at Jimmo. Nick Rodriguez fighting for the ring combat title coming up. Really big help sparring. Zach DeLeon. Cody Jones out of Myrtle Beach. Everybody from Fitness Edge. My boxing coach, Chris Gowd, as always. And then the big thing, so the one thing we've been missing where we train at our home gym at Salty Dog was that kickboxing expert. And through a friend of a friend, my good friend Kevin, who helps me out in so many different ways. He's a great friend of ours. A friend of his actually ended up moving to Wilmington, who was like a very, very, very high level kickboxing and boxing coach out of Winston-Salem, who moved to Wilmington. His name's Alan Branch. And we started working with him recently, or I have. And that's been huge. So it's finally given me everywhere I go where I'm being told what to do and being pruned by these coaches and not having to think at all. And this is the first time in my entire career where everywhere I go, I'm not thinking about anything. Something's being planned out for me. I walk in, I'm being told what to do. I'm being corrected. I'm being challenged. And it's been exhausting, but it's been awesome. So yeah, the same guys as always, with the addition of one more great set of eyes in there. And it's been awesome.
Where do you think a win over Alex puts you? Is it more just get back in the win column and kind of see how it plays out after it?
Yeah, I think I'm not too concerned with it. I've got a bad taste in my mouth coming off that fight. I got to get back in the win column, by any means necessary. And that's been the biggest thing in camp is just no complacency, not worried about what happened in the last round, what's going on in the next round. I'm not saving anything for the next round. I'm just going right here. And there's nothing past this fight, I watch the trends of, who gets cut and who loses. I don't know that this is that kind of fight for me. I don't think so, but I'm treating it like that, So my job's on the line, my livelihood's on the line, getting to do what I love is on the line every time I step out there, and that's the biggest thing. And realizing that every single fight, that every time we sign a fight contract, what a blessing it is. So that's been the biggest thing for me. So yeah, I'm just looking to win and by any means necessary and get out there, glorify God, bring home a good check to my family, take care of them, and get back ready for the next one.
You've never lost 2 in a row in your career. What kind of is your mindset after loss? Does something kind of go off that makes you change?
I'm super competitive, so it never sits well with me, but I'd say that I'm thinking about it all the time, and I am here and there, but I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing, so some of the best performances that I've had have been correcting those mistakes. So yeah, it kind of sets me off in another level that you go, man, I was operating at what I thought was my 100%, but I found another gear. This is great. So I really think it's been that, I think it's been a really great period of growth, and just in life in general. I've always said going into these fights, like my goal is to go in as the best version of myself in everything. Like I should be coming in, especially an 8-month layoff. I said this, I think, at the Miller press conference, was like, when I step out there, fighting's my vessel for life. Like I should be a better man spiritually, a better man at home, a better fighter, the whole package, And I don't think I can say that last time. I got stuck in the grind of just grinding for the sake of grinding and being like, hey, did I get tired in all my sessions today? Yes, but I wasn't focused on getting better in the right areas and in my life as well, So that's been the biggest thing, is just come out there, and I need to show it. But I know that on June 4th, like the guy standing before everybody watching on TV is a much better everything than October 2nd.
Just two more things. Like, what is kind of the goal for you this year then?
Stay active, as active as they'll let me be. I want to get in the win column, stay in the win column, and I want to climb, and I'm not too concerned with anything outside of myself, rankings and all that. But I sit back and I watch these fights, I watch who's winning, and I'm always comparing, because I'm worried about, what anybody thinks of me, but I want to know where I stack up. I want to fight the best, and in the past, yeah, I don't want to get caught up on the future, so I'm still not going to do that. But I think there's no reason I can't be up where I want to be, which is at the top of the sport. I don't care about a number. I don't care about a ranking, a main event slot. I don't care if I'm the first prelim, but I want to test myself among the best, and that's what this is ultimately. This isn't a play it safe career where it's like, I want to, I do want to have longevity and all that stuff, but ultimately I could be doing anything. I'm doing this because I'm a competitor, and that's what the last 8 months competing and stuff has really shown me. It's like, let's get out there, let's test. So, yeah, I just want to worry about this fight, stay active this year, and keep fighting the next guy, and make it to a point where I can't be denied.
Just last thing, something I meant to ask you a couple times, I just kept on forgetting, is you have a 1 second TKO on your record. Like, I don't know if that's a mistake. Like Wikipedia, Topology, both like
what did my amateur career probably.
No, a pro, your 4th win against Eric Calderon. It says you TKO'd him in 1 second. Like, what even happened?
That would have been like, I think that was like a minute and 10 seconds. But I have one with 1 second left. This is a funny story. This is my amateur fight. This is why I don't live in the future. I'll tell you this really quick. Is because they wouldn't count one of my fights, so they wanted me to fight another amateur fight before I could go pro. My coach was like, I want you to go pro. This is stupid. This is an old coach, different time ago. And I was like, just go in and get this fight out of the way. Well, you never do that with a fight. You be ready to die in there that night. I fought the world's worst amateur, like 2-4 or 2-5. And I took him down. He reversed me somehow. I ended up with a triangle choke. My coach at the time turned the clock off and put it in his pocket and was like, oh, he's got it. And the guy just sharked his way out somehow, not technique. And then we just scrambled for 2 minutes. And I have never been more tired in my entire life. If that went past at the buzzer, I had the choke and he was asleep. Thank goodness, because if that went past that round, he probably would knock me out. He was the worst fighter I've ever faced or seen. But I thought that was the 1 second one you were talking about. But yeah, so no, the Calderon would have been, I rear naked choked him in a minute or so, but that might be a typo.
Yeah, because Topology and Wikipedia both have it as a TKO in 1 second. I'm like, I don't even know. I thought maybe before the fight started, he just said no, I don't want it. So maybe they have to give something, but I was so confused by it.
No, but there's a lot of times I wish my opponent would do that at the last second.
Well, Joe, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. All right, we're joined by UFC Flyweight Ode Osbourne, who's back in action. Ode, how's it going, man?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Coming off that big win in November, were you hoping to return a lot sooner than this at the beginning of June?
Oh yeah, I was hoping to return. It's hard to find opponents for me because I don't know, people want to pat their record and whatever, but that's besides the point. Yeah, I'm excited. I had 2 opponents that I was supposed to fight earlier in January that they ended up falling through or something happened. Like the guy that CJ Vergara just fought, Clydeson is his name. I was supposed to fight him in January, and he got the flu, so that didn't happen.
And now you're here fighting Zaruk Adashev. How familiar were you with him when you got this name?
None. I have no idea. I barely know who he is. I just know that he's from Russia and he's a Glory kickboxing champion. That's it. I don't really know much about him. But I'm excited. Hats off to him for taking this fight because it's been a struggle to get fights. So I respect him.
And he's kind of weird too. He's a Glory guy. Then Bellator kind of picked him up right away. You went I think he went 2-0 in Bellator. Then the UFC signed when he was like 3-1, which you don't really see happen. It's like, have you looked at his fights? Like, I know he's 1-2. He didn't look very good against Tyson Nam, but he has looked a bit better since that knockout.
Yeah, I've not really. I've seen a couple fights of his. As always, I never sleep on anybody. It is the fight game. Anyone could do anything at any time. It only takes one punch. But I am confident in my abilities, and I know who I am. So that's all I need.
How do you think you match up against him then? Because obviously he's a very good striker, just being from that glory background.
Yeah, he is a very good striker. But he's very traditional. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not a traditional striker. I strike from all over the place. I'm all over the place. So I think we'll see what happens.
How important do you think your wrestling is going to be? Just because obviously I think on paper, everyone kind of thinks you have that wrestling and grappling advantage.
Yep. We'll see what happens, man. Like everyone always asks me, like, "Oh, what do you think's gonna happen here? What do you think?"
Yeah.
Like, it's hard. If you asked me this question 2 years ago, I would have been like, "Yeah, it's gonna happen this way, that way, and the other way." But it doesn't happen like that in a fight. You know what I mean? Like it just never. Whatever he gives me and whatever I see, I'll take. That's my mentality moving forward.
Your last fight too, like how much does that give you confidence where you can go like 3 hard rounds like that and like gas tanks? Because honestly, like you're always in shape. You think you can go 3 rounds, but it's a lot different than thinking. And now you know that like you can push that hard pace and be there for 15 minutes.
Yeah, that was a huge weight because I've always ended my fights early. So I was just like, oh, you know what I mean? I was a little weary about the distance, but I'm glad it went 3 rounds. Because Vergara is a tough SOB, as you saw him this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was actually, I wanted to ask you that. What you make of his fight? Because that fight was pretty crazy.
Yeah, actually, he's a cool dude, man. We talk all the time. I've seen him at the PI. I've like messaged him, good luck on your fight, stuff like that. He's a cool dude. I'm not one of those people. I always I respect anyone that I fight. I want them to do really well.
Still staying at flyweight. What's this, 3 in a row at flyweight? Like, are you kind of feeling more comfortable now at 125?
Yeah, for sure. That's the goal, to become the next 125, not the next, but eventually become a champion at 125. But like I said before, anything can happen. You know what I mean? I've learned to plan for the future and have an open mind that anything is a possibility.
Are you a bit disappointed you're back at the Apex? Like you go from Madison Square Garden to the Apex. That has to be like a pretty like going from the top right to the bottom again.
Not really, man. Not really. I know where I stand. I got to work my way up. I have to get the hype first. You know what I'm saying? I got to build myself. So of course I'm gonna be fighting at the Apex for a little while. So I'm not disappointed. If you ask me, I don't really deserve to fight anywhere else yet. I'm on my 2nd contract. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's where I'm at right now, and my career. So it's expected.
You mentioned it there, 2nd contract. Did you re-sign like after the CJ fight or when you re-signed?
Yes, after CJ fight. Mm-hmm.
So were you fighting out your contract then with that fight?
Yeah, that was my last fight of my contract. Mm-hmm.
And like, how big a sigh of relief is that where the UFC wants to re-sign you, still wants you to be around? Like that has to be a big confidence boost.
It's a huge confidence. I'm an exciting fighter, so I didn't, they want me to be around. I'm easy to work with. I fight literally anyone they ask me to fight. I'm always like, yes. So they love that. I literally, if you look at all the guys that I fight, they've all been dogs. So
I know you're someone that like, the fight could play out anywhere, but like, do you put any pressure to go out there and get a finish, or is it more about just getting your hand raised here?
Nah, man, it's not about getting my hand raised. I always want to get a finish. I always want to submit or, TKO or KO. I'm always looking for the finish. That's kind of like, that's my style.
Do you think it's more likely you probably submit him then, just because I imagine you probably have a big ground advantage?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea. If whatever opens up in that fight and he gives me, I'm taking it. That's just like that's the mindset. You know, if you set like a one-track mind to just wrestling or just stand up or looking for a submission, the fight may go like not even on the ground one time, and you have to prepare for those moments when it doesn't happen your way. So you can't go in a fight thinking one direction. You know, it's anything can happen in a fight, and you have to prepare your mind for anything.
Smaller octagon at the Apex. Do you think that plays any role in this fight?
Nah, not for me. Maybe for him, I have no idea. But it's a fight. I'm in there to fight, regardless of how big the octagon is. Whether if it's at Madison Square Garden, whether it's at Apex. At the end of the day, none of it means anything. Like literally, like an arena is just that, an arena. Whether it's Madison or the Apex, it's not like the fans are in the cage fighting with me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Once that cage door closes, they're not even there anyways.
We've been doing these a couple times. I was trying to remember. I remember you had your job and you quit. Was that before your last fight or the one before Manel?
Before that was the Manil Cape fight.
With that too, like, is that another kind of weight off your shoulders too now? Is it's just focused on fighting? You don't have to balance those things out?
Yeah, and no, it's a bittersweet because I love working with kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know? It's actually a big passion of mine. I actually like working with kids more than I like fighting, to be honest with you. I love fighting, don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying? But I love just fighting. Everything else, all the politics of it, I can do without. You know what I mean? I love just fighting. If it was just like that, it would be just amazing. But it's not like that all the time.
Flyweight division, like, it's not as deep as other divisions. So, like, where do you think a win here puts you?
So a perfect storm, I get a win, and I call out the winner of Umagulov and Molina.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a perfect storm. But once again, you know, I'm hoping to go in there and do what I do. That's always been my mindset. And I don't know that my best me, no one can touch me. I am confident in that. It's not arrogance, it's confidence, you know. And I don't think he has much for what I can offer. You know what I'm saying? And whatever he throws at me, I'm gonna have an answer for. Hopefully.
And they're on the same card as you, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they're
so
on the
probably
same
it works out timing wise perfect.
Yeah,
then.
It works out perfect.
So then, what is kind of the goal for this year? Then, like, I imagine it's fight this one in June.
All the time, it would be great. But like I said, the problem is getting people to fight me. It's been a struggle. So I'll take whatever I can get. You know,
just a few more things. Like, I know you work at Syndicate. Like, who are kind of the main guys you're working with for this one?
For this fight, Davey Grant, who is fighting this weekend, he's been a huge help and support. Vince Morales, he's fighting the next week after Davey, and I would say Marab. So those three have been solid, man. They gave me solid rounds. They gave me such good rounds.
And how beneficial is that too? Where you, Davey, and Vince are fighting pretty close together, so it's like all kind of peaking for around the same date.
It's so beneficial because we all help each other with our camps. You know what I'm saying? We're all in the camp. We're all in a camp together, which is amazing. I've actually never had that before, where we're just like boom, 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 back to back to back. So it's a huge blessing. Huge blessing.
Well, Ode, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course, man. Of course.
Yeah.